cualquier cosa, si se puede saber, si quieres saber, si se puede saber, si quieres saber.
Well, welcome everybody to another show of Char, where we highlight Latino X leadership in our community. So today we're very excited to be interviewing Lee Avila. I actually have some history with Lee. Her and I go back quite a few years. We were introduced by a common friend out of New Mexico, actually, and got a chance to meet her in Washington and visit her while she was a special assistant at the Department of Energy. So it's been quite a journey for us both. That was about, oh my goodness, about 20 years ago. So Lee, you have such an amazing biography and such an amazing history or herstory of leadership. And it's wonderful history for anyone, but for us, it's even more special because of your Latina heritage. So I'd love to start out with, just telling us about your family and where you were born and a little bit about your childhood and growing up.
I don't think that my story is all that different from a lot of other people's story, but as you mentioned, I guess it really is. And, we as individuals in this fast-paced world of Washington, D.C. and everything, really don't think much of it because we all have the same kind of story here. But when you think of it in reference to the people back home, I guess it is a little different. With that being said, it should also be said that in as much as I've had incredible opportunities and been able to do wonderful things and touch, thousands of people, so to speak, it hasn't been without great hardship at the same time. My family came from East LA. My mom grew up on a street in East LA behind Lincoln High, where there was one street in and one street out. And if the gangs didn't like you, there was no guarantee you'd come out. That was way back in the 50s. So fast forward, I'm born and I live in Monterey Park with my grandparents and my mom. My grandparents were kind enough to make sure that I got a great education. When it came to going to college, I was lucky enough to be accepted in a lot of Ivy League schools. So I went to a Catholic school and then I ended up at Loyola. At Loyola, I had my first experience in politics. And it was rather odd in that my neighbors, they were very active in a congressional campaign for Kerry Peck. And Kerry Peck is the son of Gregory Peck, the actor from way back in the 40s and 50s. And they shoved a sign in my hand and said, you have to put it in your dorm window because we want him to win. And that's how I got involved in politics and started moving up the ranks. And I found my niche in doing events and with the press. And I think I must have been all of like 23, 24 years old at this time.
Right.
And that's how I met the first time I went to DC, because I've been in DC, on and off for the last 30 years, I hate to say. But I met the first White House liaison, Henry Zuniga, and he said, you should really come to DC. And I was, a deer in the headlights. So Henry was responsible for bringing me to DC the first time. And it was not the experience I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to just slide right into a job. Everything was supposedly all set for me. I'd already interviewed. I get here. I don't have a job. I've had a going away party. My valuables, whatever little valuable I might have had as far as like my own personal towels, were en route over Texas somewhere in a UPS truck. And I didn't have a job. And I was too embarrassed to come home because they made a big thing about, all my cousins from East LA were like, wow, she's going to get out. She's going to, she's different and da 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 da. I'm like, oh God, I can't go home. And Henry said, I'm so sorry, Lee. I'll send you home. Your dad's gonna kill me. And I said, no, I'm not going home. You're gonna find me a job. We're gonna find me a job. His secretary was so impressed with my, chutzpah, I guess. She said, I know you're living in a hotel right now. She says, why don't you leave and you can come and sleep on my couch. I slept on a stranger's couch for about a month before I got a job. And that's how it all started. But I think I learned my work ethic, came from my grandpa, who always had jobs and did whatever he could to make sure that I got a good education through high school. My grandma was very strict. She ruled the roost and gave me a real definite set of morals and a moral compass and a path to a better life. My mom unfortunately passed when I was 17.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And that in and of itself is a very traumatic, for one, but I mean, it's a turning point in any child's life, but much less a girl. And you really learn that you have to depend on yourself, because my grandparents, I knew they weren't going to be around forever by any means, and so I had to start a life, and that was my main impetus for getting involved. Oh, there, I can see my, thank you. and that's where it started, and it just slowly evolved. Different jobs, and then when you're so when I was here the first time, my fabulous boss, his name's Armando Ciappelli for the Washington Consulting Group, and I couldn't find a job in the administration, so I worked as on a contract. I was a contract worker. I did whatever they told me to do. And when I was in California, you just never know. I was an English major. I thought I was going to go and work for corporate, communications and Procter and Gamble or something. Didn't work out, I didn't want to move to Arizona. Procter and Gamble offered me a job. Whoops, there's that hotspot. But I had to go, So I ended up working for a small 8A contractor. Who knew what 8A was? And 8A is the designation for a company, a small business that can work in the federal space in a special program. I worked for them and got some experience. And then I worked for a company here in Washington because I couldn't find a job in the administration. It was a great experience. We call him a crazy Cuban because he'd get really, really mad and everything. And then he'd buy us a dinner and say, I'm sorry. And it was really a family. It was a great experience for a first time real world job.
That's amazing. So you were saying, so the Washington Consulting Group really set the stage for you in terms of setting you on a track. It was an influential job for you. It was an important job for you. And then how long were you there?
Unfortunately, I was only there a little less than a year. I was just getting ready to take my first big vacation. I was so excited. So my grandma took ill and I had to go home. And, my grandma was a real fighter, not like physically, but I mean, she was tough. And the doctor said, we don't think she's going to make it. And I was just crushed. And it was hard to leave to begin with, to leave her alone. But she said, you have to go find your life. You have to go do this. So that's why I left LA and went to DC. And I told her, Nana, if you get better, I'll come home. Well, by golly, she got better. And that's a real test of your word. I had to leave a job and a life that I love because I made a promise. And for all that my grandmother gave me, it was, the least I could do. So as difficult as it might have been sometimes, for the most part, I was with her for the last, I guess, 6 years of her life in Monterey Park, making her comfortable and keeping her at home for as long as I could. And so I bet you never knew anything like that about me.
No, I didn't. It's beautiful to hear about it, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you.
So you spent some time back in Los Angeles. Did you stay involved in California politics and national politics?
Yeah, I get involved again. Now we all know that I know how to do events. My friends that I left before are still there, and they're saying, hey, well, come back, let's see what we can do. So by this time, Majan's running for his next election. It was against Tom Bradley. Everybody thought he was going to lose. I'll never forget, I'm at Century Plaza. We've done, events, and we, knocked on doors, and this is all pre-cell phones and pre, computers and internet, and a whole nother world.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's great. So what were you doing in that campaign? Because that's a great experience to be. I mean, California, when you're running or involved in a California gubernatorial campaign, California is the 7th largest economy in the world.
Right.
It's one of the most populous states in the union, in our country. It's, I think, our 3rd largest state. So it's highly populated, very large and complex economy. Being a part of a statewide campaign, what was your involvement in the campaign at that point?
My role is I was the Los Angeles chairman for Hispanic Republican Assembly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The National Hispanic Group. National Hispanic Republican Assembly. Yeah, there you go. Republican National Hispanic Assembly. There you go. RNHA. I had to run those acronyms in my head. And we did events. Like I said, we knocked on doors. We sponsored bilingual calling. So you call and you remind people. Just having a presence, just having a sign. And that's how it all started. Then, and so I'm way on the grassroots, whereas my dad, who was way up there, was, he was doing the commercials and the itinerary for the bus, and all the activities, and so all of this rolls into then Reagan's going to get elected for president. And then so he came after. So Jugmasian was before Reagan, so Reagan came in, and then we still stay involved. And then, suddenly my visibility and the whole RNHA visibility goes up because, Reagan was really involved with the Hispanic community. And
I didn't know that, actually. And it's very interesting to hear that.
No, totally.
Can you tell it? Please share it. Because, first of all, I just want to take 1 second, because this is a really, really interesting aspect of history that you don't really hear much about, because oftentimes people think oh, wow, Bush was such a trailblazer in, his outreach, especially Republican outreach to the Latino and Hispanic communities. So it's very interesting to hear a little more about the history.
I feel like I'm the chairman of the Republican Hispanic Assembly again, because I want to tell you exactly what, my rap was the values and traditions of the Hispanic community, whether you're, El Salvadorian or Mexican or Colombian or Spanish. We are a proud people. These are the similarities. We are a proud people. We have a work ethic. We don't want to hand out. We want to hand up. And we're loyal. These were the guiding principles of the Republican Party at that time.
Yeah. So, and then being involved in we're one of the highest populations of Hispanics, and being the chair of a Republican club, as it were. I mean, that's really amazing. And I can only then imagine, I mean, kind of just then jumping forward, you know, having this history and having so many people that you work together with to build this cultural and community movement within the Republican Party, then to see this man come down the escalator and basically call Hispanics and Latinos rapists and criminals.
It's heartbreaking.
Yep.
Heartbreaking because when I was involved, when my peers were involved, we had the backing of the Republican Party for the RNC. We had people from DC coming out. We had the support of surrogates. We had the support that were coming out to say, you know, hey, we understand this is who you really are. And it brought me back to that time when somebody shoved a poster in my hand and said, because you're Latino, you have to be Democrat. When Reagan made his appointments, you know, he had the most Hispanics than any other president had ever had. And so by the time Reagan was running for his second term, I got more and more involved, and I decided that I was going to come out, and that's when I met Henry Zuniga, and that's when I was so excited because I was going to be part of the Reagan White House because it was something I really believed in. Well, it didn't work out. All these other things happened, and I ended up working for Armando, who's a dear friend of mine now. But we did it because we loved it. We did it because we felt that it was what we were part of America, and the people before me had fought for a place at the table when it came to the White House. And now it was up to the next generation, which was myself at that time, to continue that. So I have a registration. Oh, your light just went off. Yeah, oh, there you go. I have a registration event, and I take a single mother, a student, and a, you know, kind of a middle-aged Democrat man. They're all going to hand in their new registrations to become, and they're all Democrats. They're all going to become Republicans. It's 10 stops, and then we end up in Alvera Street. Well, what ends up happening is that he has to change it to the next day because, yeah, because Bush was supposed to come out and do the whole thing himself, but he got sick. So he sends his son, and they change it to the next day. So I have to go get on the phone and call everybody, do everything. And I'm like, I'm just like sweating bullets because I'm thinking I'm not going to be able to pull it off. And but I have my friends that are supporting me, and they're saying, nope, you can do it. You know, we'll help you. I'll call these people. I'll call those people. We got to make it happen. It happened. And what didn't I know? I didn't know that Lee Atwater, Bush's campaign chairman, was there.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm like, huh? He's here? So we go back to his, and so my girlfriend's there. She goes, can I go? I go, come on, because I'm pretty scared and nervous, I guess. And I go in, and he just says, I just have to tell you that nobody in the entire country has had the gall to be in the middle of the Latino Democrat world, in the middle of, you know, here in the biggest one of the biggest Latino cities ever, and do what you just did.
Wow, beautiful.
That was the first time I actually got a presidential appointment, and I was there for 4 years. I worked.
What was the appointment?
I was special assistant to the Associate Administrator of Finance, Investment, and Procurement for the Small Business Administration.
Oh, wow. Oh, awesome. Fantastic.
Really cool.
So was that your first time working in the SBA?
The average lifespan of a presidential appointee is 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
My boss really liked me, and we worked really well together. He was also a minority. He was an African-American guy from Louisiana, from New Orleans, that ended up at Harvard and got his law degree from Yale. And so he was a big guy. You would have thought he was like a linebacker. I mean, like, no, a defensive guy. So I actually worked in that administration for the full 4 years. Then, I had to deal with my illness and recover. And I was really determined. I was really convinced that I wasn't going to be able to maintain that kind of pace, that kind of work, that kind of detail in life anymore. And my friend, who was the same friend that that was with me in the limousine talking to Lee Atwater about what we were going to do when we were kids, she was in DC, and she said, "Come and stay with me." And because I used to do that, I visit, in between time, but I'm really sick. She goes, "Just come and stay with me and just be around your friends, be around your world, and you watch, you're going to get better." I said, "Yeah, right." So I came, because what else did I have to do, right? And I stayed here about a year, and I started getting better. And I started like dressing up and going into work with her and looking for a job and going on interviews. And all they wanted to do was put me in Hispanic communications. And it's like, dude, I'm not a native speaker. I can order enchiladas and, ask for more towels, but
Right.
I can't give an interview with, Telemundo or whatever.
Wow.
And so in March, 1 year, I just went home. I was happy to be alive and be able to see and be able to walk. And those were all things that had been affected previously. And 6 months later, my friend calls and says, "Do you want to come back?" I said, "Nope, I'm perfectly happy." She goes, "No, really, I think we've got something for you." I said, "No." I said, "Your boss could have given me a job, but she didn't. It's okay. They don't want me. It's all right. I've learned, I've adjusted. It's okay." She goes, "I'll pay you a lot of money." I said, "What do you mean you'll pay me?" She goes, "The job is to work for me." She goes, "I have a job where I want you to come and I want you to shepherd all the small businesses for the Department of Energy." That's when you met me again, or you met me.
Yeah.
Okay, my job is to make you look good, and the Department of Energy.
Mhm.
So I started this, and she said, "Well, okay, I'll tell you what. You can do it your way first. If it doesn't work, we're doing it my way." I said, "Fine." So what we did is we had what's called a business opportunity session. I worked with all the program offices in the Department of Energy, and there's like 17 offices. If they had a live contract and they had room to put small business in, they presented the contract to a room full of like 40 small businesses that could meet those needs or could team together and meet the needs. It had never been done before. It worked. Not only did it work from the small business perspective of just single small businesses, but it started teaming. It got so popular that the big boys like SAIC and Unisys wanted to come. They didn't want to come because they wanted the contract. They wanted to come to see who are the small businesses there and would they be able to team with them so that they could fill their small business goals. I went from going to small business, I went into working with security officers all over the country for the Army that were calling and saying, "What's wrong with my personnel's security clearance?" And the rest of that's classified. And so, yeah, so it was amazing. It was an incredible job. And then the Army decided they wanted to pick me up. And
Oh, wow.
they trained me. So I became and I had, I spent years trying to become a Fed, and I couldn't do it because there's for those of that don't know the system, you can work for a president and you have a job and you serve at the pleasure of that president. Once the president is gone, you're gone. I go through the process, I do an application, everything, and I get the job. And it's to go through a training program. So I go through that and everything, and I'm all excited, and I get assigned to do adjudication for the Navy. I'm all excited, and I'm going through I've gone through the training. Now I'm going through the hands-on training.
Mhm.
And then suddenly I get an opportunity. And then suddenly somebody says, hey, we have a job in San Francisco and you'd be perfect for it. And it's at, this level, which is like, I'm just starting in the beginning in a new career. And this is at basically the same level I left when I left the government.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's business. And so I take it and move again to San Francisco for 3 years and lived like a college student because it's so expensive. But it was a great time. I learned a new skill within the small business arena. And I made some great friends. I became an elk. Elks are like moose, which are like club or whatever. I belong to this organization. We did a lot of volunteerism, made a lot of great friends. That's what I really missed, and decided that this was not the job for me, as much as I incredibly and will always be incredibly appreciative for that opportunity to get back into the federal government.
With regards to your background and your culture, how do you feel that's made an impact on yourself and in the work environment, and how has that changed over time?
Great question. I think it had everything to do with getting me to where I'm at right now. I think because of having, as I've mentioned previously, having my grandparents and my mom instill such a rock solid sense of who I am as an individual, always maintaining our culture, being proud of our food and our language and our arts.
Right.
Life is going to get in the way, and obviously that didn't work out, but it was a great experience, and but it was also pretty traumatic. I think that was the reckoning that life doesn't, no matter if you follow all the rules and do all the right things, it doesn't guarantee you the best outcome.
Right.
And and that's when I got into politics, because the other game plan didn't work out.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be married and have kids and start a family young and do all this kind of stuff, and that didn't happen. So
yeah, and it's beautiful that you dedicated your life to service and dedicated your career to serving your community and serving the country. So it's
yeah,
beautiful.
and you don't really think about it because it's you sort of think of it as like a job.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm in the place that I'm at, as far as helping small businesses and everything, I realize how many lives I've touched, how many good things have happened as a result of that. And I went to St. Petersburg and saw a whole new life and realized how lucky I am to realize why I was doing all the things I was doing when I was in politics.
Mm.
Because we have the best country in the world.
Yeah, especially when you travel around, you really get to see, even with all of our struggles that we're going through. I mean, we are very fortunate for all the great stuff that we have here. Going through such a powerful experience with your health, what got you through it?
Faith.
Can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
If you can hold on to the crux of everything, which is your faith, your path with God, you can get through almost anything. I realized that somewhere along the line, I was getting too caught up in just going through the motions and thinking that that's what was going to get me through. And it wasn't that at all. It was that I had to increase my walk with God and the faith that I had as a child, as a believing Christian and Catholic, that was going to get me through. I mean, I had to watch my mom basically deteriorate and die, but 17, but I had to find the blessing in that. You know, they told me that she was going to pass when I was 5, and she fought and stayed with me till I was 17 to make sure that I would be able to be my own person. And I think because I've gotten through so many things before, it was like you begin to realize this is just an inconvenience. I'll get through it. I'll get over it. And I did. And here we are.
Yeah, nice, wonderful. Well, it's a lot of perseverance, and your career has exemplified perseverance. Thank you, Lee. We've all really enjoyed your inspiring story, and thank you so much.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night.
Okay, you too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.